right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the June 24th, 2026 meeting of the Wilmington School Committee. All members are in attendance. Dr. Thompson is going to be joining us in just a minute. He's a little held up. Please, for the first item on our agenda, join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. We are going to jump right into the consent agenda. First up, we have approval of minutes June 10th, 2026. Is there a motion? Mr. Golden, second. Dr. Bryson, all those in favor? That is unanimous. We have approval of policies for second read, JFABC, JFABD, JFABE, JFABF, and JFBB. Is there a motion? Mr. Ragsdale, is there a second? Dr. McCaldy, all those in favor? That is unanimous. We are going to do approval of warrants, grants 45 through 47, revolving 88 through 95. We're going to do local, let's call it 143 through 151, but we're going to pull out 148 and we'll come back to that one. Food service, we have 75, 76, 78, FS8, and FS9. Circuit breaker, 29, 30, 31, 32. Special education, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. And payroll, July 1st, 2026. Is there a motion, Mr. Turner? Is there a second? Ms. Lord, all those in favor? That is unanimous. Coming back, we're going to do local 148. Is there a motion, Mr. Turner? Is there a second? Dr. Bryson, all those in favor?
Can I ask why we're taking that separately?
You can. Good question. It's because part of that warrant has to do with Ms. Lord and her professional capacity, and so we pulled it out so she can abstain.
Got it.
With that said, Mr. Turner moves approval. Dr. Bryson seconds. All those in favor? That's 6. Opposed? Abstentions? 1. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That concludes the consent agenda. We are going to skip, for the time being, the superintendent's report until our superintendent is able to join us, and we are going to jump into public comment. No public comment received in advance of the meeting, but as we always do, we will open the meeting to public comments. And because we are very early in the meeting already, of course, if anybody joins us a little late, we can come back to public comment. But hearing none, we will close public comment and move right into new business. First item is approval of policy JKAA, timeout, seclusion, and physical restraint of students. This one you'll recall is the one that was, David, keep me honest, put in the packet for the last meeting, but the wrong version was put in, so we are going to review and we're going to vote to approve it this evening because this one needs to be done.
Correct. So the version that is in the packet tonight is the correct version, which was drafted by our council and is compliant with new regulations that have to be in place before August 2026. So thus the vote tonight.
All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments about said policy? Bear with me, I'm having a little bit of trouble getting to it. Okay, well, that said, hearing no questions, I would look for approval of JKAA. That's Dr. Bryson, second. Mr. Turner, all those in favor? Okay, unanimous. We are moving right along. We have a public vote on the food service employees contract. So members will recall a few weeks ago when we met during our executive session, we discussed that the negotiating group for the cafeteria employees bargaining unit and our bargaining unit had reached an agreement. Unfortunately, at the time, we didn't have the signed agreement. We do now have the signed agreement. And so I am looking for, unless there are any questions or concerns, a motion to approve that contract. Mr. Ragsdale.
I move to approve the contract with the food service employees.
And Dr. Bryson seconds. Are there any questions or comments?
The start and end date of it's a 3-year agreement, right?
It's a 3-year agreement, and it should be effective
July 1st of this year going forward.
this year.
That's what I thought.
That's right.
Wanted to make sure it wasn't going backwards.
Thank you.
It is not. Thank you. Other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor? That is unanimous. I will put in a plug not for myself, even though I was on that bargaining unit, but for those of us who served on that, in particular, Mr. Simmons and Mr. Armstrong, Dr. Thompson, and the representatives from the cafeteria employees union who were great to work with. All right, that brings us to the last item of new business. Dr. Thompson, welcome. We're going to get to you in just a minute. Appointment of our Director of Finance. I am pleased to announce, and Dr. Thompson, I'm sure will keep me honest on this, that the district has reached an agreement with Christine Bourne to become the next Director of Finance. I will say, I know we expected her to be here this evening and to introduce her and to get everybody to meet her. I suspect that traffic with the 4th of July festivities out front are making things a little different, but
She actually was required to be at the school committee in her
Oh.
district, so,
okay.
yes.
Well, I'm glad we're not doing this without her if she's on her way. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here, so. That said, if there are any questions or about this hire, this appointment, I'm happy to take them. If not, I would look for approval of appointing Christine Bourne as the new Director of Finance. Dr. Bryson?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Very good. Is there a second? Mr. Turner? Hearing nothing further,
One
please.
quick comment, just thank
Yeah.
you very, very much to the search committee for all its excellent work on filling this position. It's a really important one for us, so I appreciate the time and effort.
Thank you. So, please, come on up, Mr. Posca. Join us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I think, similar to Mr. Turner's point, I think we're very excited to have Ms. Bourne join our team going forward. As some of you know, this was a pretty significant process that we went through. I think we went through this process about 3 times, and I think I do want to make sure I comment on Ms. Armstrong in her resilience and perseverance to kind of keep this kind of going. I think it would have been very easy and we did have some alternative plans ready to go in place, but I think we kept the posting up, and we were very fortunate to get Ms. Bourne on our team. She has a significant amount of experience in the state of Connecticut in a variety of districts. I think she's been part of all aspects of the business office, and I think she'll be value add to the district as we go forward. I know she's very excited about this opportunity that has presented herself, although she's been in Connecticut for a significant portion of her career. She does have some family in the greater Boston area, so she's looking forward to kind of being able to be working in this area and also have family close by. So pleased, and I want to thank the members of the screening committee who kind of went through this process on a variety of different times to kind of make sure we got the right person, and I think we had some really good dialogue to make sure that occurred. So your efforts did not go unnoticed. So thank you very much, and again, I thank Dr. Thompson as well for promoting the recommendation of Ms. Bourne going forward, and I think we anticipate to have her in the district later in July. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Posca. Appreciate those comments. And I would echo that. It was a longer than anticipated process, but with an eventual positive outcome. So thank you. I don't recall off the top of my head who made the motion and who seconded it, but we do have a motion and a second to approve the appointment of Christine Bourne as our Director of Finance.
She's like, Jen's like,
I have no doubt that Jen's got it. Okay, sorry. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Excellent. Thank you all very much, Christine. Congratulations. We look forward to working with you in the next few weeks here. That concludes new business, and if you are ready, Dr. Thompson, we will come back
All right.
to the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. So there's three things on the superintendent's report. The first is we were sent back to bring some information back to the committee about the doorman app. And that is in a memo in your packet. We did reach out to DESE. They are not in a position where they're making any recommendations at this time. We had our attorneys review the doorman contract, and they have made several edits, and they have gone back to doorman. We have not heard back from them if there are any difficulties there, but we have not executed, obviously, the contract at this point in time. Doorman did provide additional information regarding their financial stability, and, very similar to other technological companies that have started school things, they have significant support, single-digit millions that are backed by Reach Capital. The doorman representative is comfortable answering questions if the committee would like to do that. Angel has, as well as our attorneys, have looked at the data privacy piece. The doorman does align with the data privacy agreements that are required in the state and used in the state. Doorman does use Google Cloud Platform. And I'm not going to pretend to understand all of the stuff that is in that memo about how it is served and whatnot, but supposedly that is up to snuff as well. With regard to data collection, doorman restriction works on the network layer. The platform does not read messages, contents, photos, contacts, or anything along that line from student phones. The only student data is collected is a tap-in attendance log. Should we decide or willing to decide to use that, that might be implemented later on. At that point, and so doorman basically knows less about a student's data on their phone than anyone who has a home Wi-Fi router does. The data is encrypted in transit, TLS, and stored credentials and secrets are protected using the Google Cloud KMS envelope encryption, and it's not stored in plain text. So I think that we have answered all of those questions. There was a couple more. There is the possibility that there is a parent control app that it might not work well with. We will explore being able to either turn off that app and turning on doorman. Obviously, if people don't want to use doorman, they can have their phones in the main office. The other thing that we did look at, Yonder does not sell individual pouches. They sell them to districts to use with a specific magnetic key for the pouches that go. So it's not like you can go and maybe there's another company that will do that eventually. There actually is another company that just has come out that is similar to Doorman, and Fitchburg is also going to be using Doorman next year. So that is the update there. I think we have dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. And again, we're in that situation where we're still waiting. I mean, the universal, from both versions of the cell phone ban law, this phone is supposed to be inaccessible and out of operation from bell to bell. So that is what we are going forward with. If parents don't want to use the app, we will come up with another solution, be it in the office, be it they leave it at home, in their car, locked up or what have you, but they cannot have access to the phone during the day. So.
Thank you. I suspect there'll be some questions, but allow me first, if I may, just to clarify this first bullet. I know Mr. Ragsdale reached out to colleagues at DESE, and without putting words in your mouth, my understanding is they're essentially not going to review it until legislation is passed. Is that more or less the gist of it? So.
Yeah, DESE just hasn't begun doing this at all.
Right.
It's like the people who do, ed tech and would be drafting the model policy that the legislation calls for are basically just like, we'll start working on that when you put a law in front of us.
Cross that bridge when we get to it.
And in the meantime, they're doing other things.
Okay.
A lot of AI stuff, I understand.
As I can imagine. Additionally, the bullet here that says the doorman representative is comfortable answering specific questions with individual school committee members to address additional questions. My understanding, I had a brief conversation with Ms. Dunham, is that essentially the response from Dorman was we don't necessarily want to come and answer questions in a public meeting in front of a board, but if individuals want to reach out and ask those questions, we are happy to converse with them sort of one-on-one. Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we could do that, or even in small groups. Yep.
Okay. And then I'll let everybody else go, but I am still a little bit curious about sort of Plan B, meaning Yonder doesn't sell individual bags. Okay, fine. We are gonna, it sounds like Plan B at the moment is you download the app or you can leave it in the office, but, you know, I think about the high school, if 200 kids opt out of the app, are we set up, are we ready to take
Yeah,
in
there is-
that many devices at the beginning of the
Yeah.
day, right?
I'm not going to try to guess how many, but there is a space in the office right now that has individual drawers or what have you to put cell phones on. There are students that have not followed the policy as it is now and are required to drop their phones off at the end of the day. So is that 200? I don't believe, but based on the experience of the two districts that have piloted, it is a small number of, it's a handful, two hands, 10 kids in an entire building that maybe are choosing that option. It's not, most are using the app. You know, so there's the cost where, you know, Doorman is a tenth of the cost of buying Yonder pouches. There is also the reality that if a student needs to use the phone, they can come down and say, I need to use the phone, and turn off the app and make a phone call. If there is an emergency for some reason, they could turn off the phone and use, whereas if you have Yonder pouches, that's not an option. You're not going to get kids to a magnet all at once if there is some sort of crisis situation. So it does have more flexibility. We did also, there was grant possibilities going out there to help pay for this. We have put in for a grant for the amount of money it would cost to do Doorman for the first year, so it would essentially cost the district nothing. Whereas if you buy Yonder pouches and drop $60,000 on them, then you own them.
Sure.
So, you know, it's, you know, the reality of policing, you know, the pouches and getting them all magnetized and sealed up and all that is a little bit more of a heavy lift than this. And, you know, from the work of the cell phone working group before, it was very, the teachers do not want to do the cell phone policing.
Sure.
So this takes that off. If a student breaks the rules and uses the phone inappropriately without permission, then, you know, the office gets a notification and they can follow up. So.
Thank you. Mr. Exum.
Just say that from what I've seen, because there obviously are large high schools that are already phone free and that collect phones, and that I think that what we would have to do if it turned out to be, you know, more than a handful of people is, you know, just find essentially almost like a filing system. Like I've seen some schools that essentially use almost like a file box with manila envelopes, and then just like every kid has, you know, their name on an envelope, and phones go in the envelopes or into like a pencil pouch, and then they go into little bins, broken out by alphabet. It's like there are ways to do it. Obviously, it would still take more time. You know, that would be something that would have to be factored in to people. You know, when they're entering school, that would, you know, there's going to be some kind of time if we have to do that. But that would be something manageable. I mean, there are a lot of other things. There's small lockers that could be used. So I think it's important for us to have a plan B, because as we've, you know, said before, that we're kind of giving this a shot, but we're prepared for the idea that just like, and if it doesn't seem to work for us, and or if we get too many families that are not interested in pursuing this option, because again, we're not going to force anyone to install this app who is not comfortable with that. And I think that's something that does need to be clear. I don't think everyone necessarily understands that no family will be required in order to attend school to install this app if for whatever reason they're not comfortable about it. We hope families will be comfortable and certainly will at least try it. But because that will be the simplest thing for people to do, and we hope that this will be a good solution. But if not, then we definitely have to have other options. And I think we certainly have options other than dropping tens of thousands of dollars on Yonder pouches.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. How about this side of the room? You raise your hands and I decide who goes first. Let's be clear on how this works.
So point of order?
Ms. Lord.
I'm going to ask one question and then open up a circle back. I guess one, because I have many questions, but you're addressing them a little bit as we talk. Is there a plan, or can there be, for a survey or something to find out from parents what their choice will be? Because it seems like in order to, one, plan for Plan B, we need to know how many people might be leaving their phone in the office, but also depending on how many, it might affect the number of licenses we need from Dorman, which I would think would affect the cost. So I'm curious about the process of
Yeah,
that.
so the next thing that, that they are working on is to create a webinar and invite people to a webinar to do question and answer and kind of do an orientation for parents, arrange that, a frequently asked questions piece as well. And then I think once that happens, if people decided that they had more questions or if they wanted to opt out, we could try to get a count from there. I think asking people to make a decision without information is kind of silly. But that is the next piece that they are working on is that kind of parent orientation piece, probably with a rep from Dorman, in the room to give kind of an orientation and a show and tell on how it works. And hopefully that'll take some of the air out of that belonging. But there still might be some that choose that option to drop it off in the main office, and that's fine. It's about meeting the letter of the law, not, you must do it this one way.
And then can you clarify a little bit the policy currently and how this is a change? Because we're saying that just a few kids are leaving their phone in the office, so it's that or what?
They are supposed to be turning them off and putting them in pouches.
Currently.
In the classroom, yeah. But they're able to take the phones and use them in the hallways.
In between classes. So then the change will be, rather than bringing them to class or turning them off, they need to be off and disabled all day.
Right.
So that's why Dorman becomes an option.
They would be disabled through the Dorman app when they come into school. So from 8:05 to 2:45 or 2:35, whatever that, and then the app automatically turns off. And there is an option with the app to disable it if there is some sort of emergency, or they come to the office during lunch and say, I need to notify my parents that my after school plans have changed. They can do that in the office and then reconnect the Dorman app and go to lunch or whatnot. So.
Okay. And then my third question, I'll be down for a little at least, will there be an updated cell phone policy? I thought that was something we had talked about at our last discussion, I thought was actually coming back to us at one of these June meetings. So, because is that a change in the official policy, and are we making that, who's making that happen, and
Yeah,
how's
so
that being
if you look at the
announced?
acceptable use policy, there is a piece in there where the adults can determine where devices are used. So that would be kind of what we're using in the meantime. What's going to happen is once the law is passed, they're going to ask DESI to come out with a model policy language based on the final version of the law. So that will be coming.
If I can just tack on to that, because we looked recently in the policy subcommittee at essentially the device policy, and the entire thing was so out of date. It was last reviewed in 2016, and you could feel the 2016-ness of it, all the way through every part. And so this is something that we basically said, this needs to be an over summer project for Angel and some other people, and Christine, and just people, for people to look at this and kind of start to kind of think about not just about the cell phone policy, but more broadly, what does our technology policy look like? Because it's simply out of date.
Okay. That's the year my son was born, so that gives me context for how old it is.
Thank you. Mr. Turner, I'm going to come to you, but for reference, JICJA is that policy, in case anybody here or at home wants to take a look at it, noting that it is out of date. So, Mr. Turner.
So one quick question, perhaps through you to Mr. Ragsdale. I can appreciate that DESI doesn't want to enter into work before they know they have to, but the way the Senate language was written was that they had 6 months. Just because DESI has 6 months, are they likely in their history and practice to take 6 months? Because it would be problematic if the law does pass in the next, whatever, before the session ends in 7 days, and then DESI doesn't have to do anything until, December, and DESI does something in December, give or take the last day available to them, because they take their time and due diligence, we could have a policy almost exactly halfway through the year that we may not be fully compliant with. So that's the only concern or question. Is there any likelihood that DESI would rush to be done by September, August 15th or something, so districts could adjust if they had to?
I imagine that once this bill is passed, there is going to be tremendous pressure for DESI to start coming out with model language and the model policies and the interpretations of, regulations and so forth. I think that superintendents are going to be, ringing up the commissioner every day that they don't have some kind of guidance for this. So I expect that DESI is going to, get rolling on that once it's passed and not be, I don't think anyone's going to let it be like a last minute, like, oh yeah, we'll drop a model policy the day before you need to, comply.
And then just as a point of clarification, on Android at least, Doorman does conflict with parental controls. The way the Android architecture works, there can only be one thing at the system level that can block the phone. Once you install one, you can't install a second one. So that's the place where parents who want to have parental controls on the phones, if their kids have Androids, they would need to make a decision. Either they keep their controls and don't use Doorman, or they add Doorman and don't use theirs.
Sorry, you said Android?
Android, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if I could just jump in, and it might be something where if we sit down and set up the one that the parents have to meet with the compliance of the impending legislation, then that's okay. But I'm not familiar with those apps having 20-year-old kids. I don't think they're gonna let me put restrictions on their phones for them. So I haven't looked at those. But there is a possibility that there could be a third option where if parents had something that they were using and it could totally shut down the phone during those hours, bell to bell, then that might be an option. So.
And then one question we had that wasn't addressed in the memo, and I apologize for not mentioning this earlier when I reviewed the packet. We did ask about second-year pricing. Whether or not Dorman was willing to commit to what the renewal would be, because sometimes software companies, it's relatively cheap the first year and not so cheap the second.
That's right.
So it would be curious to know if they have, and I didn't see our lawyers looked at the contract. I don't know if that's one of the issues they raised, whether or not some contracts simply say renewal will be, inflation indexed to, 5% or less, and some contracts say we can charge you whatever we want the second year. So I don't know if that's one of the issues they highlighted or not. But it would be good to know from a budgeting perspective, is it going to go from 7 to 20,000, or 7 to 70,000, or 7 to 8?
Yeah, I mean, that, we can ask that. I'm not quite sure where they are and whether they know that. The fact that there is another company that has just come out with a very similar product, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Because there will at least be some competition there.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. McCauley, I'm coming to you. I will say, Mr. Turner, to your question about sort of how long it may or may not take DESI to get something done, the formal legislative session for this year ends on July 31st.
I thought it was the 30th.
It's an election year, so they end at the end of July, and then they, I guess, could call an emergency session, but the idea is that it's informal sessions for the remainder of the calendar year because it's an election year. So theoretically, we should know what the bill is going to be prior to July 31st. So fingers crossed, stranger things have happened, but Dr. McCauley.
Yep, thanks. So thank you for getting more information and everything about this. My first question is council's recommendation. I was wondering at a high level, if you can describe what council kind of marked up on the commercial agreement and kind of what's the negotiation state like right now?
Yeah, so there were no recommended changes to the Doorman standard data privacy agreement.
Yeah.
And in our lawyer's shop is the lawyer who does the data privacy for the Data Privacy Alliance. So she said it met all the standards. They did update the revenue removing the requirement for mandatory arbitration and adding a clause to ensure the software adheres to specifications. Additionally, certain liability caps were restricted, and the time frame for payment was extended to a 30-day payment to fit a municipal. So not massive changes. They have not come back with any sort of disagreement with those changes at this point.
Okay.
But if so, we would go back and forth again with them.
Sounds good. And then, thank you for having Angel take a look at kind of all the back-end IT support. There's a lot of very detailed information, and I'm not going to pretend like I understood a lot of it either.
It's all googly gook to me, Mike.
That's right.
But I have the letters. I have the vegetable soup
Yeah.
here on my paper. But that's
So just maybe like a big picture, when he did this, did he flag any concerns or risk with kind of their IT infrastructure at all? You know, were there any risks or concerns? And if there are any risks, what can be done to mitigate those?
yeah. I think so they follow recognized security frameworks, NIST and CIS, whatever that means. They have breach notification procedures, data protection safeguards, and agreements in place for sub-processors. As with any newer vendor, we should continue to monitor their security and privacy practices over time. So, you know, the other fundamental fact is that they really don't take data from the phone and store it. So there's not a lot of data that crosses over that they're storing, besides maybe phone numbers and IP addresses, which you could get going by somebody's Wi-Fi router if they didn't have it secure. So that's my kind of understanding of where they are. They do have breach protocols and everything else if it is breached for some reason, and we've unfortunately all gotten letters in the mail about breaches and having monitoring and that sort of thing, but that kind of information is not actually even taken from the phone, so.
Okay. So really the biggest, I say IT risk is the interface with parent control software that's kind of come up through this whole diligence exercise, if I'm understanding that correctly. A lot of their back-end support seems to be suitable, fit for purpose, everything like that, but you know, how it can work with Android phones and then existing parental control software.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not gonna know all of, be able to speak to all of that, but the fact that, you know, the data privacy agreement that is a standard, they already adhere to, so.
Okay.
I mean, it's the same standard we use for a student information system, you know, for Panorama. I mean, all of these companies have access to our student information and what have you, and it's the same level of standard. And they actually take less information.
Sure. Okay. And then just like a comment, I think for the committee, because you're leaving us soon. So with the implementation, you know, I did read in the memo a couple things about how, you know, they say they'll have support because the co-founder's there and everything like that, and also around their venture backed, you know, they raised initial kind of seed round is my guess, of just a couple million. I think we'll just have to really keep a monitor on how their business grows and how it continues to perform over time, and really keep a good diligent eye. So really would look to the school administration for doing a lot of that, and just kind of check in and see, like, okay, how is the support going? Are we getting what we need out of them? And then also, I think it'd be fair if we are entering an agreement with them that we actually get a little bit better view. They won't give us everything on what their current finances are too, right? Like what's their burn rate, you know, where are they at with all that too? Okay, but thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah. Go ahead if you have a question.
Mr. Ragsdale?
Two quick things. One is that, and this is tying to Mr. Turner's point about the Android parental controls. So Apple recently previewed the next version of iOS that's going to be going on iPhones in September, and they're revamping their parental control system. And so don't know exactly what that might mean in terms of Doorman, but that's something that Doorman will presumably be working over the summer with the beta versions of the operating system, and we should make a point of getting some updates from them on whether the new parental controls for iPhones are going to interact in any way with Doorman's capabilities. And then secondly, a point that I also wanted to just make sure that we're kind of getting out there about what our various options are is And Dr. Thompson has mentioned this several times about the idea that they have to be like inaccessible. And because I think that there's, some people have an idea that zipped away in backpacks and just sort of out of sight is one of the options that we have. And from everything that we can tell from the language of the law, that will not be an option. That, just sort of having students, phones out of sight and just zip them away in your backpacks and we don't see them all day long, that is not going to be one of the options that we have. That both versions of the bill talk about secure storage phones that are inaccessible or, disabled by some kind of technology. And so I think by the plain reading of the language in the laws, that will not be an option available to us, which is why we're talking about other things, that either the doorman technology option or other ways of actually making the phone truly inaccessible and not just away in the backpack where a student could obviously take it out of the backpack at any time.
And I've said this, I think, to many people one-on-one and in small groups. Schools are set up to do the main thing really well during the school year, which is teach and work with children. Policy and implementing major initiatives in the middle of the year is not a good thing. So this is what we do over the summer, is that we have this 8-10 week break where we actually do the work to be ready for the next school year. And unfortunately, people in the legislature seem to have forgotten that that's how schools run. We don't have a whole bunch of extra people to do this work in the middle of January. The doorman app is malleable. So you could use it, and it was used last year where it was only turned off during classroom time. So if for some reason they reverse course, which I don't think they're going to do, you still have that flexibility where a pouch or something else does not give you that flexibility. And one of the main reasons why the Senate did not take it up last August, as it probably should have, was because parents concerned if there was a crisis situation, their children would not have access to the phone. Doorman solves that problem. That has been the other major pushback around pouches and carts and locking them up and that sort of thing. So just all things to consider. It will be a work in progress, but trying to ensure that Wilmington is in a position where we're not genuflecting and doing backflips in January. So,
Thank you. Ms. Lori, did you have something else?
Yeah, just some couple final, big picture comments. First, I just think that, most important for us is to create policies that protect student well-being and also maximize learning, since that's what we do. So from an educator perspective, very much support the bell-to-bell phones not be available. So we have the law in that. In terms of what the exact solution is, I think that's where the flexibility is in terms of what that is. So again, reiterating to parents that they're not required. The doorman app is one. Like you said, there's a lot of reasons why that may appeal to people, but if not, there will be the locking. There is another option. You can turn your phone in. I did also just want to comment that, I'm not partial to one solution or another, but if something like Yonder Bags became an appealing, I think that it's not something that we should assume the district needs to fund. I know the district would need to do the initial purchase, but that it could be something that parents buy from the district, since it is basically a bag for a personal device, just like I buy my own son, his backpack to carry supplies to and from school. So just if financial reasons are what is preventing us from that option, I think that's something to consider if that were to become a good option to think about in the future.
Thank you. Anything else before I move us along? Dr. Bryson?
Sorry, just one quick comment. I just want to I guess I'm requesting that as we start to roll out whatever it is we really do in September, that we get sort of frequent updates in the school committee so that we can figure out how things are working and that we're not just hearing from parents sort of via email, or that we're also being systematic about how we're collecting some of that data. I think I shared some of the feedback I'd gotten from someone at Watertown High School who had said there were some issues with kids being marked absent if they didn't tap. And then that turned into kids not being allowed to participate in sports, which kind of brought me back to COVID. Remember when they had to do the check-in in the mornings, and if they forgot to do the check-in, they were restricted from doing sports in the afternoon, and there was a deadline on that, right? And so if you didn't do it by a certain time, even if you weren't in school that day, like it was like or if you were in school that day, so if you were in school that day, you had to do it every day. But kids were coming into school healthy, and not doing the check-in by 11 because they were literally in class, and then they weren't able to participate in sports after school. So there was sort of this, like, we were trying to, I think, adhere to for the safety of our kids, but some of those little pieces, I think, were then really hurting our kids. And so just if those sorts of things are happening, that we're seeing kids are getting detentions or kids are getting absence and they're not allowed to participate in sport, like, I think we do need to be aware of those sorts of things as we roll out, because any new anything like this is going to come with something is going to be tricky, right? There's going to be something that's going to be hard, and to Becky's point, we want to make sure that our kids aren't suffering sort of as we figure out what works best for us and for the schools, so. So frequent updates, I guess I could have said that. Can we just have frequent updates?
Yes, we can. We'll make sure that there are frequent updates on the agenda.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, Dr. Thompson, you're still up.
I'm still up, yes. So we had talked about so for transportation, it was proposed that we look at creating a working group for next year. So I think the focus of that was specifically routing and safety measures. We did have a conversation with our Director of Transportation, but we have not formed that group, so I think maybe we should see if there's a couple school committee members who want to volunteer for that, and then we can try to get that, at least the organization of it, started this summer.
I think I'll add just a little bit of flavor to that. I think sort of the conversation that Dr. Thompson and Dr. Bryson and I had sort of stemmed from the presentation that Lisa gave a few weeks ago, and I thought it was really helpful to sort of understand the transportation program as a whole, but there were some questions that were, I don't know, unresolved or under-resolved, and so I wanted to, the conversation we had was, as Dr. Thompson said, a working group with, Lisa, maybe somebody else from Colt, a member or two from the committee, building leaders, parents, of course, the Wilmington Police Department, right? To look at and sort of study those topics that we talked about that were not completely resolved. Bus sort of routing and safety, certainly, things like bus monitors that we had talked about. So I had shared earlier this week with you guys a memo that Lisa had put together to sort of start that conversation, and I recognize that we still need some work. We still have some work to do, and I think this conversation will continue into the summer. But I think it's important that we keep this conversation going. I mean, we've had what I would characterize as higher than normal engagement on transportation this year, and so want to make sure that those topics get discussed and addressed. So we will, if anybody is like chomping at the bit right now to serve on a transportation working group, certainly let us know. If not, if you want to think about it and let us know, that would be fine as well. So, thank you.
The other thing is,
Mr. Turk.
First of all, I think it's a very good idea. It was a few years ago, we redid the start times and had the whole shift on transportation, and we added the 17th bus and those things. So I think it's a really good idea to revisit it and see where we were.
Yeah.
I think that I don't think we're at the point where we need any major changes, but tweaks certainly could be helpful, and I think that group could discover some interesting ways we can make some changes.
Yeah, I agree, and I think not putting words in Lisa's mouth, but sort of summarizing some of the bullet points that she had shared, like, if we put a bus monitor on every bus for the entire school year, it would cost the district almost $500,000. That's not an insignificant amount of money, right? Route planning software was not great when she first joined the district, and now they're significantly better, and so maybe it's something that we should be looking at. Looking at policies, and yes, we looked at them a few years ago, but, do the policies match the procedures? And if they don't, do we update the policy or do we update the procedure, right? And so some of those sort of bigger, broader questions I think need to be addressed, and that's kind of the idea, so.
yeah. Well, and looking forward, in 2 years, you're going to have a new elementary school on one side of town, which is going to change bus routes.
Right.
And you're going to be negotiating a new bus contract.
Yeah.
So you've got this year, and you've got another option year after that, and then, so all those things can kind of get wrapped up into this work.
Think about it. If anybody wants to serve on it, let me know.
Okay.
All right.
And then the last thing is that we have started a diversity, belonging, and climate working group. As you know, we have had several instances of inappropriate and racist language being used, written in the schools, being seen and spoken in our community. I have not only reached out to the school committee, but also town manager, assistant town manager, chief of police. We have kind of a core to start off. Aaron Dunham has agreed to co-lead. Brian Chara, Principal Brian Chara, Amy Iasconi have stepped up, and Kate Bissell to work with this working group. We have school community members Jen Bryson and Stephen Turner who have volunteered to be part of this group. I did have a good conversation with Chief Pupa, and he is going to recommend one of the SROs to serve in that working group. I would ask that folks here consider maybe a community member and a parent. And perhaps we should probably look at some teachers, maybe have them join the group maybe in September, and have this group maybe meet a couple times during the summer to get organized. We have reached out to the Anti-Defamation League about No Place for Hate. We are prepared to expand that down below the middle school. So we are in the process of talking with them. We need to get principals involved with that, which will probably happen over the summer. But we need to look at specific educational materials and programs beyond just, and No Place for Hate is great, but it's more of a celebration. It's not necessarily a foundational piece. But, no child should be made to feel othered or separated. And unfortunately, that has happened this year, so we need to do some work to address that.
Thank you.
If a parent is looking to volunteer to join that group, how would they do so? Who would they reach out to?
They should reach out to Aaron Dunham.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Golden.
Thank you. Thank you to the superintendent for putting that out there and spearheading on it. I think it's very, very important, very needed. Two questions. One, as we consider expanding, as we consider expanding the ADL program to the lower grades, could we hear an update? Talking about updates, a lot of update talk, about what the curriculum looks like from them. I would love to get just a re-up of what's in there as we kind of, if we are to bring it to the first and second graders, I want to make sure that we are kept in the loop on that one. And then secondly, this is a broader question, but as we discussed, we updated recently our policy with regard to using AI to depict other students in a certain way and breaking the rules on that front. This may be too broad for the remit, but I want to make sure if it's discrimination, we're also talking about gender, and I want to also make sure we're not undoing or overlapping with anything from our health and wellness curriculum. So I'd love Aaron has sight into that and would be a great voice for that. But, in this day and age I think it's important that we make sure the students are on the up and up about what misogyny looks like, but also what, it means to have a healthy sense of yourself. So for the boys and for the girls, as to speaking maybe more plainly, making sure the boys respect themselves and respect the women around them. So if there is a way to incorporate that, if that even makes sense to incorporate, or if it's better served elsewhere, I don't think I will be serving on this working group necessarily, but my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, and I think the title, Diversity, Belonging, and Climate, can cover a wide range of.
And it might be, with the chair's permission, it might be outside of the remit. I'm just putting it out. There might be for a separate conversation for another day, but I think about it often, so I want to make sure that we're not, if there's an opportunity for it, maybe it would be good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Thompson.
You are welcome.
Appreciate the update. All right, traveling back to our original starting point in the agenda, that's old business. We have no old business. It brings us to subcommittee reports. I believe Dr. McCaldy has a report for us this evening.
Yeah, I do.
Whenever you're there, it is.
Got a presentation also.
Nancy.
All right, so thanks. So the outreach subcommittee, so that's myself, Mr. Golden. We put together this proposal based on feedback from the last school committee meeting where we talked about liaisons to some of these like school affiliated groups. So today we're gonna go over that. Feel free to interrupt with questions and everything. We're not planning to take a vote to say agreement. This is more just to put the proposal out there, collect any feedback, and then if we have it's not a retreat, I forgot what it's gotta be called.
I
this summer.
vetoed calling it a retreat.
Yeah, if we have a retreat of some kind this summer, we can talk about like how we want to do this. So, does that make sense, everyone? Okay. All right, great. Okay, so the primary point of the liaison is to be the point of contact between WPS affiliated groups and the school committee. We don't really have this right now for a lot of the groups. Some we do, so like CPAC, there's someone on the wellness subcommittee who goes there. That's great. But we don't have that for a lot of the other committees. So usually, sometimes they're very ad hoc, or maybe some issue comes up of some kind, right? And then it's all of a sudden like, okay, we need to talk to the school committee, or school committee, hey, we need to go talk to these people. So this is a way of kind of getting a little bit more structure around the process. So primary responsibilities is if you are a liaison, you're just the go-to person, right? So people aren't blasting the school committee, always going to the chair. They're going to go to the liaison first to kind of talk about what the issue is and everything like that, or how we want to work together. Now, as a liaison, you need to facilitate these requests and then also gain an understanding on the group's efforts and initiatives, but we want to be cognizant of everyone's time. You don't have to attend the other group's meetings. You don't have to be embedded with them and know everything that's going on. But you do have to have a general understanding of what is their goals, their missions, what are they kind of working on this year. Okay. Now we do need to rope in the chair a bit. So if we do want, let's say you as liaison feel there is something that's really important that, you know, we really need to have this group come to the school committee meeting, by all means, reach out to the school committee chair, invite the group members to discuss any of these relevant topics so that we can have them at the school committee meeting. So really think of it as like you're the bridge. All right, so kind of played around a bit with the Google AI to come up with this diagram. So I got like 95% there. But this is kind of like the vision, right? If you look at the diagram here, is as liaison, you're really going to start facilitating from the ground that two-way communication, because everyone here kind of knows what the mission and the goals are of the school committee. The group you're working with, they know their mission and goals. You can start to have that conversation on, hey, how can we collaborate? How can we support each other, right? And then if there's anything that is quite important or something that is a larger topic, that can then come to the school committee meeting. And it could be anything. It could be like just, we want to broadcast this great effort that this group is doing, you know, so school committee meeting would be good advertising. Or, hey, this group's really working on something important here. Let's bring it to the school committee because this can inform future policy, future this, future that, right? So the main goal here is to really build awareness, improve communication, and facilitate collaboration. That's what I have to want.
Wondering how I get my seat elevated above you guys like that.
You deserve it.
I'm sorry, keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So this was the first stab at how we would align the liaisons to the different, from each subcommittee, and how they would go with the different groups, right? So what we wanted to do here was we have all these subcommittees. Can we match the person from that subcommittee to be a liaison to a certain group? So like WEF, for example, it would be someone that is on the finance subcommittee because money, right? PAWS would be a new one, so someone from outreach, because PAWS is really great about doing outreach to the broader community. CPAC, we have this person already built in. We're not going to change it, so making sure we just keep maintaining that. The PACs and the SACs, though, it would be, we were thinking an at-large member, because none of the subcommittees really quite align with what these groups do. So this could be anyone on the committee who would want to volunteer. Okay. So last slide, and I just want to kick off any kind of discussion here. So to summarize, the liaison proposal is really a first step to increase engagement, to put in more formal structures on how we can get closer bonds with these other WPS affiliated groups. And then what I'm hoping it will do is it will increase a lot of collaboration, and then we can kind of work together and be stronger, you know, for the school district. So with that, I'd like to gather thoughts from the group. I have a couple starting questions here, so one, any general thoughts? Do you all think this proposal will achieve better communication awareness? If not, any modifications, anything, any other suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Any other ideas on the assignments, concerns on workload? I know they came up last time. And then we had a really big discussion around the SACs as well too, so I kind of put that into a separate bucket here. So is this approach appropriate for the SACs? And then if it is concerning, could there be a different mechanism to increase SAC engagement? Because I think that's something we've heard from people that sit on SACs and also from people that are on our committee, is that we don't really have great communication between them. Okay, so with that, I want to thank Mr. Golden and Ms. Lord for feedback on this proposal and everything, and I'll open it up for discussion.
Thank you. I think it looks great from first glance, and I suspect that there may be some initial sort of thoughts or questions, and then to your point, there may be a sort of a longer discussion at a later date. But certainly anybody that has questions or comments or observations, Mr. Turner, are you raising your hand? I'm sorry.
I will, but I don't have to go first.
Please go first.
We do not need that chair. We need to fix that. Gemini is broken. So two thoughts. One, I first of all, thank you very much for the work. I think this is the direction we want to go in. It leads back to some of the conversations we've had in the past. I do think that being very, very sensitive to making sure we're not inserting ourselves in the normal chain of conversation from parents to teachers and principals to the central office, just making sure we're not providing an alternative path people go around the way that should be the default. And so this is, I kind of think that ideally this would be more thematic rather than any one sort of, hey, we have this problem that we're not able to resolve. There's an existing way for that to happen. And to the point of connection to the community, I think it's fantastic. And just making sure we have that as the backdrop of where we're coming from. Our purpose for being here is to hear what is going on, what's being talked about, and what comes up. And then when there is something, I think the idea of celebrating the work these groups do is great. We have from time to time had PACs come and talk to us. Certainly WEF and CPAC have come and talked to us. And pause at different times as well. So having them and celebrating the work they do is in effect an advertisement for them to help recruit more members, because every one of those groups needs more members, particularly the PACs. So I think there's a balance. I do think that managing our workload, other than the chair and Ms. Lord volunteering to do all of it, I think we might, I'm referring back to a prior volunteering. I wasn't volunteering you myself, I promise. That being careful on that side, but I certainly think it is something that we should be doing and very likely in a form really similar to where you guys are. The details for sure, I think we can work out, but I like the idea for sure. So thank you very much.
But I think it's important to note this is a conversation that started 2 years ago with your proposal that sort of evolved into a little bit different but similar idea. And so this is, a good sort of natural progression of that conversation. And I think I would echo your comments. I think it's a great idea. The one thing I'm mindful of is not either inserting ourselves into something or creating more work for either of those committee members or the building staff, right? So no, absolutely. But Ms. Lord.
I just thought I'd weigh in a little bit from my experience on the SAC this year, which first of all, I'll say I was on it as a parent, and there were other parents on it also, and we discussed goals 1 and 3, which, and not goal 2, but 1 and 3 were about attendance, school attendance, and about family engagement and communication. So the discussions were all about that, and it was very helpful to talk and hear from other parents. It really wasn't something that, was about school as much as it was connection to the families and schools and hearing what's happening on the ground, and got some great ideas and great perspectives from hearing parents and having that chance to collaborate. So that was a little bit the thought. It did make me think afterward, I'm not actually sure what the stated goal of a SAC is, what is their main purpose and what are they set up to accomplish? So that might be something to clarify. And then I think the idea was, in terms of the having a contact, was so that the people aren't expected to attend all the meetings, because that can be, cumbersome. But if people at the meeting know, oh, hey, we have a good idea, or we have a question that we think something that's relevant to school committee, they have a person, wouldn't necessarily have to be the principal if we think that that could be, a not good chain of command kind of situation. So maybe it's a, parent or whatever, representative knows that they could bring something to us, and hopefully that would keep it from being too much time. That's my, in Gary anyway. Thank you.
Let's go Mr. Ragsdale and then Mr. Golden, only because Mr. Golden is on the outreach subcommittee.
So looking at sort of where we already have things, I think that a member, sort of a liaison to WEF makes a lot of sense, because everything that WEF does needs to flow through the school committee and be approved by us. And so I think that that's a connection that definitely makes sense. Although I don't remember we've had WEF in to just present like what they do for a long, long time.
Been a while.
It's I think maybe we've done it, but I can't remember exactly when, and that might be something to think about, because obviously we had CPAC this year. I can definitely remember multiple times that we've had CPAC to come in, and but I don't think I remember that I remember WEF. But I think that's great. CPAC is an important thing. Special education is very relevant to school committee work, and I think it's important for us to have that liaison. Out of sort of the list of groups here, I think that the a liaison with PAWS makes a lot of sense. To me, that makes the most sense, because PAWS by its nature is about outreach and advocacy for district-wide initiatives. And so that really goes kind of hand in glove with what we're trying to do in terms of better community outreach. Like that's kind of their jam. And so I think that, some good connection between PAWS and school committee makes a lot of sense. But ever since, this idea was floated at the last meeting, I have been thinking about the PACs and the SACs, and I'm not as sure that makes the same amount of sense. I think that in particular for the SACs, I think that obviously the work that the SACs do ultimately comes before the school committee, because it flows upward into the school improvement plans, which come in front of us for every year for review and approval. But that is, again, the process that kind of flows through the discussions they have to the principal, and then the principals come in and present to us. And I'm just not sure that in the sort of at the beginning of those processes that there's really a place for, it would seem odd to me to get, for the school committee, for example, to get updates from a liaison about like, oh, well, the Woburn Street SAC is working on, such and such. And it's also hard to know exactly how to frame that if you're not part of the meetings. I think I do absolutely take the value that Ms. Lord expressed about like being a part of those conversations, but you only get that if you're actually there in the meetings having the conversations. That's a really hard thing to kind of report out to. Like if you're not attending the meetings, that would be a tough thing to connect with someone and say, oh, can you let me know kind of how the discussion of goals 1 and 3 went? And then they try to communicate that, and then, I don't know, that comes to the school committee for a subcommittee report or a liaison report. I'm not exactly sure that specific work at that place in the process really intersects with us. And the PACs do great work, and we've had them in front of the school committee. I think 2 years ago we brought all the PACs in front to talk about everything that they were doing. But their work is very school-based, and I don't know that it interacts or intersects directly with school committee responsibilities. And so I guess I just want to put out a little bit of hesitancy that I want to make sure that the efforts that we're doing, this is true about, obviously, initiatives of any kind, that you want to put, your wood behind the strongest arrows and make sure that you're really getting value and benefit for the time that you spend on specific initiatives. And so I have possibly some hesitancy about the school committee putting its time and effort into a few of these groups in terms of liaisons. I'm not sure that we'll get the value we're looking for there. Open to, being convinced on that otherwise, but those are some of my initial thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Ragsdale. Mr. Golden.
Thank you. So, yeah, I thought that was very thoughtful. to me, just opening in terms of how I'm seeing a lot of this, I think the PACs stand out to me as having the greater appeal for sure. I kind of see a lot of this as opportunities for us to kind of go fishing. You go to one of these, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know who you're going to see. There might be something that comes up that, we all have networks from having either our own children in the schools or just folks we know around town that will tell us at Market Basket, in doing whatever around town, or folks who feel comfortable enough to email us, because I think there's a pretty small group of people who feel comfortable enough to come before us. I think having folks who are regularly attending PAC events, whether that is at the schools or like Wildwood, the PAC I think just had like a really fun fundraiser kids event that I was like passively like, gee, I should probably try to go to that, but I didn't for various real life responsibilities. I think these are opportunities for us to go and perhaps hear from folks who are definitely in the know in their buildings in a way that we may not be. And I think what sets it apart from the SACs is they're going to bring to us things that are not part of that regular SAC workflow that, again, is reported up to us in a way that we already know, which is through the principals. I think that some of the PAC stuff, it's a little, because it's more parent-driven, I think there's ways we can get information there that we may not be inspecting. So it's almost, I envision like, it's like a barrel full of monkeys, right? You put the toy in, you don't know how many you're gonna get, you don't know what you're gonna get that day. You go to one of these events and have a parent you've never seen before just moved to the district and say, oh, you're on the school committee? Well, here's what I have to say. And that's just an input we wouldn't necessarily get otherwise. So it's an opportunity for us to go looking for it in a way that is a little bit more taking the initiative, which I find really appealing. But perhaps the committee decides to merge those two for bandwidth purposes such that the PACs end up taking up like all of the time in that role. But anyway, that's how I see it. I've been to some of the PAC events before and I've found them to be positive. I think a lot of the folks, I went to one at Jordan's a couple years ago at the Fuddruckers, and they looked at me like I had three heads. I was like, I'm on the school committee. They're like, really? Why are you here? They were very like thrown by, and they didn't have a ton to say, but I think it was just nice. It was kind of like when we went to the high school. Not a lot of folks used us, but it was good that we were there. So, rant over. Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Dr. Bryson. Yes.
So I hear everyone, and I'm sort of like, yeah, I kind of like this idea of having a liaison at a PAC event where people know it's the school committee member, and that might make us a bit, it kind of reminds me of the Ask Me Anything, but it's a little bit more systematic, where people may actually start to recognize you and actually feel comfortable, whereas those Ask Me Anythings can be tricky because they're like, oh, I don't really know them, so it does build this relationship over time, which I think can be useful. My hesitation is kind of with Mr. Ragsdale on SAC, because parents advise the principal. That's what that group is for, right? To advise the principal on student needs, educational goals, and then ultimately the school improvement plan. That's sort of the idea. It's a family engagement, it's a mandate by the state, you have to have one. And it's meant to sort of bring families in to do that work with the principal. If we have a liaison and they're talking with us, they're supposed to be advising the principal, and the principal is supposed to be then talking to the super, and the super is supposed to be talking to us. So I'm thinking of it as like, does it sort of cut through in a strange way that could become problematic? So that's just, so I'm not saying absolutely not, but I think when I first saw that, I was like, yes, yeah, I don't know about that one. That gives me pause. Like, I'm a little nervous about the SAC piece. Why are you looking at me with that questiony look?
I had the same look for him, don't worry.
Okay. I'm like, so that's the only thing I would want to just kind of really think through with Mr. Posca. Like, that's going to be, that's his area there. So I'm like, ooh, I don't want to kind of infringe on that. So I just wanted to think about that. The only other thing I would say is the liaison thing. I think every communication should filter back through the chair, even if they just want to, I think that sitting in that space, the chair does need to have a sense of all of it. Like, there's nothing that one member could be like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, I'll talk. Like, I do think it all needs to kind of filter back so that there doesn't become this feeling of like, oh, I'll just handle it, or oh, I'll just give someone some feedback. Like, I think every time I write to a parent, talk to someone, whatever, I always throw Jesse a quick text, because he has the whole vision of it. So he'll be like, oh, that's so interesting. David also told me that. Like, there's got to be that one person, I think, who can then inform the superintendent. And if we lose that, if people start acting as like individuals and liaise, like really helping in that way, I think that could become pretty dangerous. So So I just think that would need to be like a quick addition, which puts a little more work on the chair, but it's not a lot for Jesse, I don't think, to get a text or whoever's in that role. Hey, what do you think of this? Like, I think always just running it through before we communicate in that way is helpful for our overall kind of functioning as a group.
Well said. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So part of the confused look was because what you suggested the SAC does and what David suggested the SAC does is slightly different. I checked the policy handbook, or policy manual, and there is not a policy on the SACs. So what exactly their role and function is not, I thought it was broader than the school improvement plan, which you suggested it was. But Mr. Ragsdale said that was the main focus. And based on what Ms. Lord said, the conversations sound a bit broader as well. And so it really is a fine balance, and that's why the first point I made was about the chain of command and not wanting to get in the way of the way things should work by default. But to the point of awareness and the point of engagement and connection, and the fact that the SACs and the PACs are places where parents are engaged already, I think being there in some form, what I would suggest is we should start with the assumption that being there is a good thing, and if we have concerns, we should figure out how to manage those concerns and try. And if it doesn't work, if principals come to the superintendent in a year and say, this was a terrible idea, we listen to the superintendent saying, it was a terrible idea, let's step back from it. But if we could find a way to start and try, and to really to that point of connection and community outreach, to the whole point of the subcommittee, I think finding a path that helps us and the community feel more connected, everyone feel more engaged in helping the students learn, which is where we're all trying to get to. I think we should try. I mean, obviously, if we come up with massive objections, no, we don't do it, but that's where I was getting around to. And do we need a policy? We've only got 460 pages.
Mr. Golden.
Thank you. So I'll add some color. I was looking at the Shawsheen right by my house. It's one I always go to for me to pick up. But SAC for March, their agenda, there's like a topic section, which is a little meatier. It's the budget process, their goals, specific discussion of goals and how to meet them. And then the update section has, here are all the cool fun things we're doing. It's reading tokens, then we're bringing in this artist to come talk to the kids. So there seems to be a mix. But I also think I again lean towards maybe consolidating these and making them more tax forward, in part because I wonder what the audiences are probably relatively, I think there's overlap probably in some of the people you'd meet on these bodies. I would assume. You don't think so? For bandwidth? Maybe not.
Yeah, different. But just in my experience, I don't know, yeah.
But just a couple more things.
Thank you. Does that give you, Mike, enough, do you think, to move forward?
Yeah, I think so. So we won't decide anything today, but I think I got some good feedback. We'll reconvene with the outreach subcommittee, and then whenever we have our
Summer working session?
summer working session, yeah, not a retreat, then yeah, we can actually decide what we want to do.
I think that makes sense.
So thank you, everyone.
Mr. Turner?
I had one last good idea. We could get some thoughts on how some other districts do things. Maybe there's some grand ideas that might be coming into the room that we could at least tap into. So, just a thought.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. All right, other subcommittee reports?
Sorry,
Or
I just-
do you have a comment for
one
this?
comment, real
Yes,
quick.
please.
So I'm not looking at our online policy manual, but I am looking at the MASC one and BDFA. Can you just double check and see if we have that? So that's school councils. Sorry, we can continue, sorry.
It doesn't have the word advisory in the title, and it doesn't say the word advisory in the
Sometimes it's called a
document.
council, so there is a policy for it.
Yeah, the MGL actually just calls it a school council.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, are there any other subcommittee reports this evening? Hearing none. Correspondence.
None this evening.
I'm going to use the correspondence time as I have in the past several weeks for just a quick note. I want to take a minute to first thank everybody here in the room and at the table for all of your work this past school year. I appreciate, I know that these meetings are not always easy. Sometimes they're short, sometimes they're long, sometimes we have fun, but you guys, this is a great group of people, and Your commitment and your dedication is incredible, and I appreciate each and every one of you. I want to, obviously extend to the students and the parents and the staff wishes for a happy summer vacation. And then I want to just very quickly thank Mr. Posca, Mr. Simmons, and Dr. Thompson. For those of you who may or may not know, Mr. Posca, who's here with us this evening, has been referring to himself as our superintendent-elect, but he'll be joining us full-time next week after he wraps up his time in Nashua, but has been continually engaged in projects this year, including, as we know, hiring our new finance director and several others, and I won't list them all, but thank you. Look forward to having you here full-time. To Mr. Simmons, who, had I realized that our last meeting, it was his last meeting, I would have done this then, but Mr. Simmons, who served as our finance director this past year, is transitioning to a new role in a school district on the South Shore, significantly closer to his home. But Mr. Simmons was integral in obviously preparing our budget this year. He was helpful in negotiations that we talked about earlier. And while he was only here for this year, we thank him for his contributions to Wilmington and certainly wish him well on his next chapter. And last but not least, Dr. Thompson, leaving us at the conclusion of this school year. Grateful for your leadership and your guidance. I know being an interim superintendent is no easy task. You're asked to do a job, but, in a lot of cases, to sort of stay the course and not make any major changes, which probably is not easy, but you rolled with it. You performed with a sense of professionalism, a sense of humor, and a deep appreciation and care for our community and our students. And while I imagine the 2 to 3 hours each way were not the best part of your day, I have no doubt that had that not been the case, you'd have been a great addition to Wilmington. But Middleborough is lucky to have you starting soon. So, Dr. Thompson, thank you for everything. Appreciate your.
Do I get to say anything?
Yeah, absolutely, you do.
I could be recognized.
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah,
Dr.
so,
Thompson.
this has been an incredible year. This is an incredible community. It's been a privilege and an honor to be here. I constantly would joke that being in Wilmington was absolutely fantastic. Getting here and getting home, maybe not so much. For those of you who drive 128 every day, God bless you. But, I've, expanded my, as I lovingly call it, my educational family. It has been, and you've heard me say it before, and I'm obviously, this is my last meeting, last day, because I'm going to be on vacation. I'm not just blowing smoke. This is the best committee I've had the opportunity to work with, so I want to thank you for that. You are all people that I respect, I enjoy working with, and I am going to miss you. So the tough part about being an interim and moving on to another is that you leave some of the family behind. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their contributions, an incredible group of administrators, central office folks, Christine keeping me on track and cracking the whip every once in a while, but just incredible people to work with, and I am deeply going to miss not continuing with you folks, but are in a good place financially, systematically. You've got a new building that we are looking forward to building, and I've already told them they better invite me to all the big events because I want to see it and walk through it when it's done. And congratulations to everybody for the hard work, and I know that you're in a good place to keep going onward and upward. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for everything.
Thank you. There's a carnival outside in your honor.
I'm not sure I'm going to make the height requirement on some of those rides. So.
With that, any additional comments? Well, Mr. Turner and then Dr. Bryson.
Or maybe Mr. Ragsdale.
I was just going to say, you thanked us, thank you. Thank you for your leadership, thank you for all the effort you put into being chair. It's fantastic and very much appreciated.
I have said in the past, sometimes serious, sometimes in jest, you guys make this job easy. So I appreciate it. Thank you. That's it? Okay. Mr. Exum.
Just want to express my gratitude to Dr. Thompson for, for a strong year of real accomplishments in the district this year. We got a building project passed. We moved ahead on some really important initiatives, and I just want to express my gratitude and appreciation for the work that you did here, and for always keeping the students front and center in everything that we were doing. And I'll just thank my fellow committee members and everyone from the administration. It's not an easy thing to run a school system, and we did another year. Thanks to Jen and Jesse for your leadership of the committee, and have a great summer.
Thank you. Yeah, a terrific central office team, to be sure.
Yes,
So,
definitely.
thank you. Okay. Hearing nothing else, a short list of future school committee dates and other notable items starting tonight and continuing through June 28th, Wilmington Fun on the 4th celebration, fireworks carnival outside here at Town Hall and on the Common. June 29th, summer programming begins. July 3rd, that Friday, schools and offices are closed in observance of Independence Day. And then, of course, July 4th is Independence Day. With that, while I suspect this committee will meet subcommittees and summer working sessions at some points during the summer, I would look for a motion to adjourn until just before the beginning of the school year. Mr. Golden, please.
I believe on June 30th, there is a public, very short school building committee meeting.
Yes.
That folks should be aware exists.
Yes.
But is not going to be very interesting, nor is it going to be very long.
Fully remote, approving some warrants.
June 30th, Zoom remote Wilmington, what are we calling it? The Elementary School Building Committee. Thank you. Mr. Golden?
I will do it.
Very good. Is there a second? Dr. McCaldy. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you and good evening.